Hello and welcome back for the third installment of my craft room redecoration update series. If you missed the first two episodes, you can find them in a corner here, and I hope you watch them first so you can get the whole experience of my manic craft room reorganization project. I'm coming at you 100 watts and smiley today because it is the most beautiful spring-like weather. It's the end of February. It's unseasonably warm. It's a record high for my area today. It is 70 degrees outside and it feels like pure spring. And I know it's all fake and that we're going to get 2 inches of snow in 2 days and I'm going to be sad again. But right now the windows are open and it's sunny and gorgeous and there's a breeze and everything is right with the world. So I've got the windows open in the craft room to get a little fresh air, and I thought I'd give you a little update about what I did off camera last night before I jump in today. So I was really exhausted yesterday from all the work I did in the morning that I documented in the last installment of the video, and I did end up doing a bunch more in the afternoon, but I was too tired to film it. Honestly, the filming adds a lot of extra effort, and frankly, I don't think it was going to look that different. It would just be more time-lapse footage of me pulling junk out of the closet and sorting through it and this giant mountain of crap in my craft room. So why don't I show you what I did get done, and then you can watch me do a time-lapse of what I'm going to do today. Okay, so here's the giant mountain of stuff. It looks a little different than it did last night because I did get some of it put away, but I mean, a large portion of it has been temporarily shoved into my cabinet, which is not what we want. However, you might notice that the organizers that were on the floor over here are missing because I did 100% empty out the closet and start to fill it back in. So before, a bunch of boxes were up top here. They were like partially empty. They were taking up a lot of space and were completely inaccessible. And then down here, this whole section was packed with old canvases and artwork and sketch pads and things. And what I've done instead is put all of that stuff up here. I know it's really hard to see because I don't have any light in here, but take my word for it. This all the way back until the end of time is canvases and artwork and old things that I'm going to hold on to because they're sentimental, but I don't need to access very often at all. That's an empty sewing machine case and some other junk that I don't need all the time, some books and scrapbooks and things. Here, I moved one of the organizers in, and right now, I don't think this is going to be a permanent setup, but I have put in some works in progress that I found while I was cleaning out my other things. Let's be honest, most of them are UFOs. Some of them are just seasonal things. There's a couple projects here that I'm very enthusiastic about and intend to finish, but they're warm weather stuff, so I just haven't been working on it in the winter. A lot of these are things that maybe won't get done, but I have to come back to that at a later time. And then there's more organizers here. I'm trying to keep it more accessible. There's no drawers that are blocked by other shelves this time. Right now, it's maybe not the best use of space, but it's out of the way and everything can be pulled in and out pretty easily at the moment. So that said, my goal for right now is going to be to actually get all the junk that I temporarily stuffed into that hutch to get it out of my way out so I can kind of style the hutch and the bookcase and get some more of this out of the way. And I'm probably also going to try to figure out what to do with the overflow yarn stash that I've shoved in the guest room for the time being. I'm thinking the closet might be the best place for that, so I do have a little more closet rethinking to do. Okay, so I have a lot of yarn stash unaccounted for. These things are very small and don't really need their own space. But this whole bin, I've talked about it a million times. I have a huge stash of Summer Kiss and Low Tide from Christmas tree shops a few years ago that was on sale. You can see I've got like 6 or 7 colorways of Summer Kiss. I think I only have 2 colorways left of Low Tide. This bag is entirely the 2 sweater quantities of Lamb's Pride that I have left from Rhinebeck this year. And this whole bag is just my acrylic. I mean, I have scraps and smaller skeins of acrylic too, but these are like my large skeins of acrylic, kind of this size and up. Please forgive me, my microphone died, so I'm sorry if the audio is horrible, but I'm kind of losing steam. I put my overflow yarn stash in the closet. It's not ideal, but it fits. I would prefer all my yarn be out where there's light, but it is what it is. I did spend a long time starting to stage this hutch, but honestly I'm getting burnt out and my enthusiasm is waning, and I'm gonna wait until I'm at a better point because this is my favorite part and I'm not feeling it right now. So I'm gonna go probably have some dinner and maybe pick up later. It's been a minute. I did not intend to leave it this long between filming vlog updates. However, the work got kind of tedious. It got really repetitive, just like bins of junk I'm sorting through. There's only so much sped up footage I'm sure you're willing to watch of me sorting things when you can't really see and follow along with what's happening. And honestly, it became too much of a chore to film it. Sometimes it's worth it to be able to share with you the details that I'm working on, and sometimes it's just twice the work for very little added value to the video. So I did a lot of work in here over the course of about a week, which was mostly sorting, a little bit of styling my things in my cabinets, but truly it was mostly going through junk and putting it in a bin, and a lot of changing my mind and going back through it and moving things around to try to make it as good as I can. And then I got sick for a week. While I was sick, was, occasionally up to working in here, and I was running out of things to do. But what I decided to do was keep chipping away at the small stuff, and I saved a couple big important tasks that I definitely wanted to film. So now I've kind of basically done everything I can do without filming more updates. So let me give you a little update on like the status of where everything is, and then we'll get into the juicy part of today's video, which is a big one. Okay, so here is where we're at. It still looks messy, but I'm sure you can see there's so much more open space in this area. It is not one big mountain of junk anymore. Got a little corner shelf here because I felt that this was wasted space. And then there is still junk on this end, but just because I don't have very many flat surfaces to store it on, I did clear off most of the desk and kind of reorganize my sewing area. It's hard to see here with the junk I have, but actually most of the desk is usable now and not staged. Mostly taking stuff off the wall, but not the stuff at the tippy top I would need a ladder for. And obviously I haven't cleaned the wall yet either. There's some spots from the same pictures being in the same spot for a long time. But generally, it looks really different, doesn't it? I don't want to get too into the details of what I've staged here because that's part of the reveal, but basically I'm kind of just putting my pretty clutter back in. This is sort of my new podcast area, and I decided to move my chair and my table and my little ottoman out from the wall a little bit so that I had room to put this, which is actually a full-size standing height cutting table. So I could actually do fabric cutting in here. So it's really fun because it has a lot of storage. It's not even utilized properly right now, but there's storage on both shelves here. And then both sides are a leaf that folds up and has a leg that swings out. And it's all on casters. So on a day when I want to sew, I can roll it out into the middle of the room here and set it up, and I'll actually have a full-size cutting table that I'll be able to use and do all of my sewing here in my craft room, which is the whole idea. I just haven't had the space to do that before, which I'm really excited about. Annie's been helping me a lot. She is very nosy and she's in here constantly. So let's talk about the junk that I still have on the floor. This box doesn't have very much stuff in it, but it's things that belonged to relatives that are sentimental, that I don't need to be out all the time, that I actually kind of want to store away in plastic to stay protected. But there's a lot of space in there yet, so I haven't put it away because I might still add to it. This whole stack is empty organizers and bins and baskets and containers. that I might use to organize other things before I'm done. And this, basically everything I have left to sort through is all things that belonged to my two grandmothers. So that is going to be my task for today. We're going to set up the camera, and apparently Annie is going to help me, and together we are going to go through all of these bins of knitting and cross stitch and sewing supplies that I inherited from my grandmothers, so we can see what we're working with, but also find a place for it in the craft room. My two grandmothers both did various sorts of fiber crafts. Both did a small degree of sewing. One was a lifelong adamant knitter. She taught me how to knit. The other used to cross stitch years ago. She gifted me a bunch of her cross stitching things. I took a handful of patterns, but she gave me a lot of thread and materials for that, which is something I intend to delve into someday, but I'm just not there right now. That said, of course, the things she gave me are precious to me. And so there might be sewing stuff in here. There is a lot of knitting and cross stitch. And these are all of the bags that my relatives brought to me of my grandmother's stuff, and I've never looked through them at all. So these have all been sitting in my house, some of them for years, some of them for months, and I haven't looked inside of any of them. All right, Annie. Firstly, this is one of the things that I have opened before. This is a bunch of bags of thread that belonged to my cross-stitching grandmother. And they are in these bags with labels on them. So I believe she sorted these into these baggies based on the color family from the thread manufacturer. I don't actually understand because they don't look like color families to me, but this bag says 700, and I can see that all the colorways on the labels start with 700, and the same for all of them. So this system must have made sense to her, but I don't use this kind of thread, so I genuinely don't understand it. But I'm gonna look up what the thread labels mean before I take them out of these baggies to better understand why they're labeled like this before I break it up, if I decide to. This box is a bunch of her cross stitching like supplies, or just sewing supplies in general. We've got a bunch of metallic thread, extra of these little spools, needles, a bunch more thread down here that was already in use. So again, I will probably just keep everything in here as it is. If I find more cross-stitching little supplies, I would add them to this. But I don't think I'm going to do a better job organizing it than it is there. Okay, so a couple of these bags are pretty easy. This one, I know exactly what it is. The earlier installment in this series, you watched me go through my other grandmother, the one that was a knitter, her knitting library. I inherited all of her knitting books because nobody else in my family knits, so nobody else can use them. So in a previous video in this series, which if you haven't seen, you should go back and watch, because that was the start. You should watch things from the start if you can. And we went through all of those, and while I was doing that, I found a knitting pattern that kind of made me cry while I was filming the video, because it was like grandma's pattern. Like, she memorized it my entire life. I watched her knit the same Afghan pattern over and over and over again, and she had it completely memorized. She made dozens of these Afghans, and when she found herself unable to knit anymore, she was halfway through 2 of them. So I have inherited these. I know from my grandma's knitting journal that she kind of started to fill out, that I also inherited in that library, which of my cousins these 2 were intended for. At some point, I do intend to finish these for my cousins, but it'll be a lot of work, and I don't know when. But like, just so I can show you what my grandma was about, let's pop this one open. So it's funny that this one's blue, because I've literally never seen her make one in any color other than this. This texture is so nostalgic for me. So grandma only used straight metal needles her whole life, which honestly are the bane of my existence. Straight metal needles are the worst, and I hate them. I will try for you, Grandma, but I might switch to circulars at some point because yikes. But everybody in my family, with the exception of the two youngest cousins that didn't get these two yet, had this Afghan. This is Erin Afghan. And oh, look, it's labeled. I didn't even know that. Is for as long as I can remember, they're always this color, this exact color. This is Red Heart Super Saver color 313, and this is it. Like, she's used it, and it's beautiful. I don't question her decision. It looks like that classic era knit when you make it in this kind of off-white color. These, from looking at the pattern last time, I know that you knit 5 of these cable panels and seam them together, and then you do finishing on the edge. I believe the finishing as written in the pattern is a fringe, but I know that Grandma used to switch up what finishing she did on them. Some people had fringe, but after they were used and washed for years, the fringe would like mat together and not be so nice. And there were later versions of the blanket where she actually had a crochet edge on it. So, which is interesting because I've never known her to be a crocheter, but I guess a lot of knitters know a degree of crochet, and or maybe she had somebody else do it. I don't know, but some of them definitely had a crochet edge. So at some point, I hope to finish these two. There are finished panels at the bottom here. I hope there's like 4 finished panels at the bottom here, and I only have to knit half of one, but with my luck, I have to knit most of it. I'm just not looking forward to a very long cable project, but I absolutely feel like this is my grandma's legacy, and I owe it to my 2 cousins who are the last of the generation that all got blankets to get their blankets. And I guess my one cousin is getting a blue one made out of Caron 1 pound, which is odd to me. Like I said, I've never seen her do a color other than that Red Heart color, but here we are. This bag, I also know exactly what this is because my grandma's go-to main pattern was absolutely that Afghan, and she could do it without even thinking about it. She was so good at knitting those panels. But her like comfort fun project was little towels where you like knit the top into a little loop that you loop around something in your kitchen. So she used to like to make those and sell them at markets and things, and we all also have dozens of those. She loved to give them to us as gifts. In this bag is just a ton of the tiny towels that she used to make those. So she purchased all of these with the intention of making her little handy towels. There are a million in here. So I don't think that's my kind of knitting. I'm not sure that that's what I want to do. I actually, until this moment, was under the impression that these were all already processed. Like she had like cut in half larger ones and added holes to them. But she hasn't. These are all intact. So I don't know. Maybe these would be better suited, donated to like a shelter or something where people might need washcloths and towels. Let's go in here. This is a smaller one, and I can see through the sides that I think it's all Lion Brand homespun, which, yes, it is. It looks like 6 different colorways, and for some reason, everybody donates this stuff. I have so much Lion Brand homespun that I have gotten from thrift stores. Like all of this is homespun from thrift stores. Actually, this is a very similar color family too. So at some point I will likely be making a blanket out of this stuff because I don't know what else I could do with this just vast quantities of this yarn. That will be added to stash like regular yarn. This is one of the bigger bags. I'm intrigued to see what's in here. Oh, sewing. A bunch of thread. A little tin shaped like a button, or it's not a tin, I guess. It's like a plastic bin. Oh, she is so nosy. This is snapped, or excuse me, this is hook and eyes. Yeah, little sewing notions. There are like a bunch of patches, and these look like they were just cut out of a novelty fabric and meant to be made into patches, which is cute. I wonder what she had intended for those. Yeah, sewing stuff that will be assimilated into my sewing supply collection. I don't know if you can see Annie in this shot, but she's making herself comfortable. Almost certainly all of the yarn in here from my grandma is going to be acrylic. She loved working with acrylic, and she did subscribe for a long time to those Annie Knit and Crochet Club. So I've previously received a bunch of those, just like single or 2 skein quantities of Annie's yarn, which I believe this is something like that. It's very soft for acrylic. It's nice stuff. So I feel like I'm just going to be quite expanding my acrylic collection today. I think kind of fluffy white, but it's rough. It's definitely not natural fiber, but it's pretty. Girl after my own heart. Look, can't get rid of a tiny little nubbin like that. Acrylic. I can't say that about every skein. They're all, I will comment if they're not acrylic, because they're gonna be. This heavy, hefty organizer of buttons. Oh, this is actually kind of a nice surprise, because I've been able to see this like edge sticking out of the bin all this time, and I thought this was all just going to be these like novelty plastic buttons that she used on those kitchen towels, but it looks like there's actually some unique stuff in here, and a lot of them look like they were like pulled off of garments or existing things. Oh, this is fun. I have already sorted through all of my button collection and sorted it into bins, but I kind of like the idea of keeping my grandma's separate so that I know which ones were hers. And also, like, I'm not going to do a better job of sorting them than this, because they're already sorted by color, and this is so full that this won't assimilate into the organizers that I've already got going anyway. So I am just going to add this to my button cabinet as is. This looks like some in progress stuff, maybe. All right. These are like electric shears. They're always so funny. Okay. Oh, here we go. So this is like, she got started on this one already. Halloween black cat. Maybe I'll finish this one though. That suits my household. So these are the ones she already like cut and folded over and got ready to turn into kitchen towels. Oh, I bet this is a baby garment. This is so cute. This is definitely this yarn. And it's cabled. That might not even be a baby garment. That might be a panel for an adult garment. For somebody smaller than me, but it might be. I don't know. A bunch of string needles. There's 2 of these. I don't know what they are. They feel like cotton. They kind of strike me like blankets, but they're too small to be a blanket. Maybe dish towels? I wish I could track down what these were meant to be. These might have just been one of those Annie's kits. Okay, now there's 3 of these, which I believe are knitting needles. This might be her full collection of knitting needles. So many. Oh my gosh. All right. Okay, this one looks like it has definitely more needles, but notions other than needles too. Oh, there's some nylon ones in here. My favorites. A bunch of sets of DPNs. Oh, these are fat needles. Okay, she had them sorted by size. All the ones that were in with those notions were quite small. The first one I opened was like the middle-sized ones. And these are the chunky boys. This is overwhelming. Okay, this is more supplies, so maybe I should go through this. Oh, this is more Red Heart. Oh, it's labeled. Oh my gosh, she labeled it with a label maker. Erin Child sweater to finish. Yes, ma'am. Will do. I hope the pattern is in here. This is a back panel. It's hard because the stockinette is rolling up, but there is sleeve shaping here. This is the front panel. Oh my god, all she needs are... This is the front panel. I got them because the back is just plain stockinette, but the front has this pattern. I am going to figure out what pattern book this came from because it's got to be here. I inherited everything. It shouldn't be too hard to find. It's just a stockinette sweater with this cable motif down the front. 100% going to finish that. Another partial project. This is cotton. I think another like dishcloth or something to that effect. Still attached to its yarn. More needles. Ooh, these are cool. I've never seen this before. They're like, it's just like a clear acrylic semicircle, but it would lay flat on a page, and there's a very thin line running right through the middle. So I imagine it's for reading charts, and you can move this to the line of the chart you're on. That is very clever, and I've never seen that. All right, there's some embroidery in here. Oh, there's a half finished embroidery project in here. I wouldn't say half finished. Okay. It's got some flowers, and then this one did some of the leaves. That seems like something I might be able to endeavor to work on at some point. So I am finding a lot of assignments in this bag. Part of an embroidery hoop. Oh, there's a bunch of embroidery hoops here. Now I see them. Annie's hook and needle club. This is cute. Little basket, and it's got like yarn wrapped around some spools and little needles sticking out of it. These are just some little decorative yarn things, sticky notes and buttons, little sliding tins, which are really cute actually. Ooh, this looks like 3 skeins of Bernat Sweetie, which says 80% acrylic, 10% mohair, 10% wool. It's very pretty. Super pale minty green. And it seems it's like an imitation mohair sort of thing. Well, I guess there is some real mohair in it, so it's not imitation, but it's largely imitation. I wonder, it is the color mint. Okay, some more tools in here. I see another spool of thread, a bunch of small crochet hooks, seam ripper, another latch hook, and a pair of scissors. Embroidery transfer patterns. Okay, this is the 2 bags of her yarn. Scraps of acrylic, some sort of cotton, red heart, kind of a nice pattern if you look at them like this. There's some Karen Simply Soft in here. A bunch of stuff, more Annie's Knit and Crochet Club. My grandma loved her some minty pale greens. That's like the 10th one. We're getting somewhere. We are getting somewhere here. So that was everything from my one grandmother, and then I know that the other one gave me this box of knitting things. She's never knit as long as I've been alive. I've never known her to knit. But you know, like a lot of people from that generation, she knew how. She just wasn't really into it. She had other hobbies. So this was her box of knitting things that she had given me, that we did look through together at the time, but again, this was like 4 or 5 years ago. I really don't remember. I do remember that hers was largely acrylics also. Very 80s, 90s sort of geometric idea. I don't know if you can tell, but all of these black sections our seed stitch. So there's like a nice texture to this. Oh, this is different. This is like super chunky. I think this was several strands held together. This one still has live stitches, so I guess she changed her mind about that too. But there are a lot of little scraps. Oh, this is overwhelming. Okay. None of these really have labels. There are some others, like mostly it appears to me that these are like DK and worsted acrylics. There is some like embroidery thread in here. We do see some slightly bulkier ones at the bottom. It's difficult for me to pull these out to show them because there's a lot of little tiny balls of thread that are just loose in here. Okay, I think this is enough. Honestly, it was fun to see these like started projects. I do not know yet what I'm going to do with this quantity of yarn. I have ideas. If you have any ideas about what I can do with all of this yarn, hit me up in the comments. I'm thinking right now, at least one blanket, possibly more blankets for like my sister or my new nephew, or you know, people in my family who would appreciate something made from grandma's stuff. I say my sister because we're the only people that have the same two grandmas, and I could use the scraps from both of them and make like a cool scrappy blanket. Cool. So this was fun, but I think I'm gonna move on. And now that I've gone through it, there are definitely some things that I can put away, but right now I am not ready to tackle the acrylic stuff. So I'm gonna find a space for that and kind of sort through some of the other notions that are easier for me to deal with today. I've been dreading working on this, but at the same time, dying to have it done. Even though we can make everything, we won't. I got a lot done. I had a couple little strokes of genius. First of all, I don't know why I didn't think about taking pages out of magazines before.